Welcome back, friends. We will note that we now are, I don't know, 5 episodes, 6 episodes in, and we still haven't even gotten to some reading. That's the way it goes here. We are now on to the
You've
adjective.
opened up one of my favorite babies, so
Absolutely. And it deserves a good look. It really does. Let's not be slapdash about this. Let us give some consideration, because I agree. Poetry is it is tremendous, and it needs its full due. So Catholic and the Eucharist, right? The real presence is more than a metaphor, but it does have similarities to it. The bread and wine become, instead of being like, and yet they're linked to the accidents that remain, the flesh and blood of Jesus. Mary, litanies to Our Lady, are replete with metaphors of her, not just in a similar sense, but in a real and concrete manner. She is the mirror of justice. She is the seat of wisdom. She is a mystical rose, and so forth. And I have links down to the Litany of Our Lady, and you can go there, and they're just so like the Eucharist. She isn't just like them, like we quoted with Shakespeare prior.
right. It's almost better to say that they're like her.
That is right. They are like her. They are like her. If a poet is honest in their quest for scalpel precision truth, yes, we're not letting that go, then sooner or later they will encounter the truth. A consequence of this encounter is integrity with creation, and that integrity with creation, when they're being honest, is going to become self-evident. I always like to, whenever I think of that kind of thinking, I track back to Frank Sheed, and he will clearly stay in his seminal work. The more one sees the world as God, that's theology.
Right.
Sees it, the greater the sanity, the truth, not opinion, the truth that person will be able to understand, encounter, and hopefully explain to others. Transcendent truth is an essential Catholic idea. Metaphysical would be that area where theologians would enter into conversation. Catholic poetry aims to express truth that is beyond metaphysical to ourselves in a way that we can comprehend it somehow. For example, defining God. That's a huge project. It's within both metaphysics, because Aquinas will, the existence of God, but that doesn't really define exactly who God is. I mean, he has these 5 attributes, but it doesn't get to love or triune or different other aspects that we would, as Catholics, attach to a definition of him. But the incarnation, yes, it's pitiful. Yeah, for example, and also the incarnation, right? The 5 proofs for the existence of God doesn't track to the incarnation, for example.
Right. I mean, and at some point there, that's where you, I mean, I think that there is that little bit of the marriage then, right, between what I was talking about before, where you have her scalpel precision, as it were, having to do with the fact that she means by that you're going to pare down the sense perception to the marrow, right? You're going to look at something and you're going to see it in its essence, which is interesting, because with science, it's almost as though like you see science better when you don't know the essence, right? You can study something. It's in the abstraction of it. Like you're cutting it down is to find everything that it's like, so that you can find everything that it's unlike, right? I mean, that's the whole nature of classification. How do I make something? How do I use these sense perceptions in my brain to be able to recognize you every time that I see you as Karen, right? Or you to see me every day as Karen, right? We had this relationship of many years. Slowly over time we change, but there's an essence of you and an essence of me that if we hadn't seen each other for 30 years, right, we would still be able to go through all of those perceptions that we had when we saw each other and come to an understanding of one another again, because our brain allows us to make those classifications of essence. But science has to discuss them in a way that allows the brain to abstract them, and poetry has to make them concrete. And they're different elements, and it's going to be it is whenever I'm trying to teach the kids poetry, they're like, well, I don't know what that means. I'm like, well, then start what it means, right? Like, what did it say? Like, just start there, right? Because then you can maybe start making some metaphors. Sun is light, right? Or anything like that. You might be able to start creating those little propositions that we find in logic that are so elegant in the sciences, right? And I think that's where the types of syllogisms and things like that the language assists the scientist in creating something that is true, is very, very similar to the syllogism that the poet creates to also name something true. I think that there's a lot. I'm teaching right now a class that's I started last semester on poetry, and now we're moving to logic. But I think you could also do it the other way, right? Start with logic and then create back to poetry. And maybe it's one of the reasons why we have so few people of a poetic nature now, because we have so little logic.
We do have very little logic. I would agree to that. Exactly. All right, friends, we're going to pick up with the adjective of great in the next episode. Till then, Fides, the Ratio.